Afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks so much for listening. I'm Adam Spencer. I'm head of accessibility services for Accessibil-IT. We're the largest PDF accessibility service provider in the world. This is all we do, and we've been dedicated to tagging PDFs for 8 years now, and have been implementing UA since we could. When we got notified of next-gen PDF, it became something very exciting to us. One of the challenges that we deal with and one of the challenges that our clients deal with is that gap between we're authoring documents, but we need to post it in accessible formats to make sure that all of our users can access content on any device, which historically been a challenge with traditional PDF. So with NextGen, we got really excited and started working very closely with Access4 and for any Canadian and Americans in the room, my Vanna White will be Marcus shortly and be helping with the demo. So history of PDF accessibility. In the beginning, there wasn't any, and it was horrible. And end users complained constantly that PDF content could not be accessed by either adaptive technologies or repurpose the content in any way. And when UA was released and the tag spec came through, it allowed us to open doors to adaptive technology users and repurpose the content in a way that hadn't been previously available. So what we have still experienced to this day is this reluctance by some users to even try and open a PDF because it was like walking into a door. Even though where I'm from in Ontario, we have some of the strictest accessibility laws in the world. Every single piece of content being posted to the web or distributed digitally must be accessible. If not, an individual can be fined up to $100,000 per day per file. And it's actually levied on the author, which most people don't know until they get an email, which is funny. For me, not for them. So we do have very strict laws, and those laws have been in place since 2010. And the provincial government, for example, has been posting all of their content accessibly. The problem is that end users were still complaining that the content wasn't reliably accessible, and they couldn't access it on the device of their choice. VoiceOver, for example, had a big problem with accessing tagged PDF for many years up until the update. Was that last year, Leonard? Last year. So we were seeing ministries in the government posting the same content in 5 different file formats. They were posting it as an inaccessible PDF, a UA compliant PDF, a plain text document, a Word file, and HTML. Same content, because they got yelled at by a very angry member of the public who's a great advocate and did great things to get the law moving, but he needs to upgrade his skill set. So NextGen comes along, and this becomes a great opportunity to tell him that plain text documents are not accessible either. So we've got a great opportunity coming forward. So UA is the current standard in PDF accessibility, and as people have mentioned earlier, it's not always the easiest of things to do. One of the challenges that we face is that we don't get to control how the content is authored. We're receiving the content from an author after the fact. So we never work in the source file. There are applications available, Access PDF for Word as an example, that can generate a fully compliant UA file in effectively one click. But there are still limitations with what most people have installed on their systems. For example, Google Docs. I have no idea why anyone uses it, but it's popular and it's unfortunately horribly inaccessible. So this means that even though we've got a great specification, we've got great capabilities of generating accessible content, most people have no idea how to implement it, which leads the end users to be suffering with an unknown. They come up to a PDF, they don't know whether it's going to be accessible or not, and even if it was automatically tagged by some authoring software, it's not reliable, it's not usable, and that becomes a big function of what we look at in what we do. It's not just compliance with the specification, it's usability. At the end of the day, it needs to be easy for someone to read the content. And this has become one of the challenges that we've dealt with in UA because we don't get to control the authoring environment, because we can only do so many PDFs in a day, and organizations have fixed budget, this becomes a challenge. So we started looking at, okay, what else do we need? And 2 years ago, the Canadian federal government stopped supporting PDF. they put out a new directive that said if the file cannot be rendered completely in HTML on a mobile device, sorry, I shouldn't say that, couldn't be rendered completely on a mobile device, they would not support that format. From a business standpoint, that wasn't a good day for us. And from a PDF technology standpoint, it was even worse because we all of a sudden lost a major developed country supporting PDF. And that became a very interesting conversation between a few of us. And when next generation PDF started getting talked about, it was, this is what we need. So we got very excited. The federal government has even said that they will be prepared to look at next generation PDF when it is ready, so we can start generating PDF files for the Canadian government again. I'm not going to go into tag details. We've already seen how that structure is built. But again, it's not just about having a tag, it's about having meaningful structure to your content so that an end user is able to have an expectation of how they're going to consume that content. As a sighted user, we recognize that, for example, a title is going to have a different layout. Well, if I can't see that content, I need to be given instructions to understand my expectation. And particularly with navigation of complex content, that structure becomes even more important. Think about a complex data table. If you don't have excellent structure that's consistent, you may have no idea or the wrong understanding of what cell you're looking at. So when we receive a lot of auto-tagged files or, hey, we gave it a shot and this is what we think, but we can't pass a checker, we look at the file and say, even if you tried to pass the checker, this file would still be unusable. And I think one of the exciting things about transitioning into next generation PDF is that most users are going to be able to open that file in a different way and see the impact of those semantics, clear as day. And that's really exciting. So, UA, what challenges remained? From a development standpoint, I would suggest we didn't get as big of a buy-in from implementers as we had hoped. I don't want to name out any organizations, but let's say there's a large implementer of .docx files. And I don't know what they're called. But anyways, the challenge becomes people were given the wrong idea of how easy it was to make a document accessible. There was misguidance. So people were trying to follow, authors and developers were saying, okay, I'm going to follow styles, and I'm going to have a heading, and I'm going to have a list, and I'm going to have a table. The guidance that we were seeing from consultants in Canada was actually detrimental to the author. And at the end of the day, it was detrimental to the end user. There was a a great implementer, not a great implementer, total sarcasm on this, who was instructing people not to use tables at all because they couldn't generate a correctly tagged PDF from Word. This is not how we fix problems. We don't avoid them, we try to find solutions. So the entire province of Quebec, who also has their own accessibility legislation, outlawed the use of tables in documents. How do you convey an annual report without using tables? This makes no sense. And instead of teaching people how to fix the problem in other implementations or using different tools, they outlawed it completely, which is madness. So we've always had the philosophy of we can't tell an author how to design their content. We've got to make sure that we're able to make it accessible. We can never dictate how an author wants to convey this content. So from an end user standpoint, this became a challenge. The development side was leaving a gap, and the end user side was saying, am I getting the right information here? I'm not sure. One of the challenges with UA was the great XMP flag that identified whether the file was PDF UA compliant or not. However, what we were seeing when we were testing files was that people were just downloading the tool or downloading that extra piece, throwing in the flag saying, I'm UA compliant. And it wasn't. It was just an auto-tagged file. And because there was a lack of understanding from the implementers, from the end users who were authoring the content, at the end of the day, the person consuming that file was still getting a horrible experience. So this is where I would suggest that a lot of the people on the TWG and a lot of people even in the TMG, when we've been having these conversations, we get it. We understand where those challenges lie, both from a development standpoint and an end user standpoint, and we really are committed to fixing this. you have heard all morning, and you will continue to hear about next generation, that everything is based on the semantic structure of the file. If we've got great semantics, we've got great accessibility. So the other last challenge that remained was multiple screens. When we first started working in UA, nobody would ever consider reading a 300-page technical document on their phone. I once got called a liar for saying that we had tagged a 768-page document, and the guy yelled at me saying, "That's not a thing." And I said, "No, people write very large PDF files. You just don't know what to do with it, and that's okay, but it still needs to be made accessible." And when we're starting to look at how people are consuming content, the type of content being consumed in different ways, Next Generation PDF and the accessibility of Next Generation PDF is designed to capitalize on that. We want to make Next Generation, well, I want to make Next Generation PDF the most barrier-free format, bar none. And I really believe that we can do that. So, you spoke, we listened. This was the #1 feedback that I heard every single time that I would work with one of my clients. We don't want to do it, which was great for our business because this is what we do. But at the end of the day, this is about adoption, and knowing that there are over 1 trillion PDFs on the web, it's not going anywhere. We've got to embrace a different model that says, okay, you may not know how to hand tag a PDF. That's okay, and you don't need to. But if we're able to be generating accessible content in different ways, and again, the specification is still being determined as to how that will look, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you can access content on any screen that starts as a tagged and ideally accessible PDF. So this is where we've taken the feedback that we were getting from our clients, our end users, our customers, and from the technical standpoint, all of our different businesses, and said, okay, let's work together on this, and let's make sure that we're building a new foundation for PDF that goes beyond what it was originally designed for in print. So for me, usability and interoperability is priority #1. I never want to tell my end user how to read or consume the content. That's up to them. For example, with our authors, we never tell them what color schemes to use. We never tell them what font sizes to use. We never tell them anything from a design perspective. Because at the end of the day, PDF UA and now Next Generation PDF is about having one experience that can be consumed differently, depending on how you want to read it. Whether I want my background colors changed, or my font sizes different, or my perspective different, my device may be different because I'm on a plane one day and I'm sitting at my desk the next, I can still access the same file in any way that I choose. And that usability is going to be an absolute game changer for accessible content delivery. And that goes and it does go beyond strictly in a PDF context because of the different ways that we can show content. So, the old way, what we've done is we've taken four or five sample pieces of content, and what I want to do is show you how we formally would tag this, and then I'm going to show you what we've been able to do from a fully tagged PDF. So charts. In PDF UA, this would be tagged as a single figure, likely with a heading. If I walk over here, can you still hear me at the back? Because I've never been told I was quiet. Actually, is that on? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay. So we would look at this and say, okay, we've got a very complex chart. There's going to be an almost impossible hurdle of being able to describe these data points. And from an alt text standpoint, so we would tag likely a caption, a figure, and then we're going to give the theme of this image. We're not going to be able to drill down into detail. As a sighted user, you're going to be able to see where these peaks and valleys are and how they cross. But from an alt text standpoint, it's going to be almost impossible to be able to accurately describe it. We look at trends. And part of this challenge is the way that alt text is consumed by adaptive technology. I can't pause alt text. I can't rewind alt text. I can't skip words or sentences. And when you're consuming content like that, a lot of the alt text just becomes noise. And when we started working with our clients at the CNIB, the RNIB, the American Federation for the Blind, the comments were, keep alt text simple, because otherwise we just skip it. And if I need the detail, I'll call someone and get that detail. Well, that doesn't make sense to us either, because we want to make sure that the experience is immersive for everyone. Am I going to get feedback by going here? Reflow. So we've all seen multi-column documents, right? On a page, we'll likely go into a landscape mode with the document. We'll have a series of headings, paragraphs. We've got an image, more subheadings. But the page is locked in. There's nothing we can do. From a reading standpoint, that's okay. And there are definitely implementations that allow us to reflow today. But it's not common enough for an end user to have an expectation that when they see a multi-column layout, they're going to be able to do anything other than deal with it on the page. One of my lead developers has low vision, and he uses a 60-inch monitor on his desk. By magnifying his display to 2,500 times magnification, he won't use a screen reader. But reading this document and getting, depending on the spacing between the columns, he may not know that there's additional content to the right of that initial column. So this becomes a really big challenge for the reuse of content. Again, a lot of people in the accessibility space have focused on screen reader users, but there are so many other adaptive technologies that are used, particularly in conjunction with others. So things like Zoom Text, and in conjunction with JAWS or NVDA, you can have a completely different experience with the same content, but we're locked into the one-page layout. Became a challenge for readability. Favorites of remediators everywhere. Tables. Tables on a page. To be honest, fairly easy to tag. This table even includes images. We've got header cells, both along columns and rows. And the more detailed that the table gets, the more complex it is. And navigating a table that is fully UA compliant is definitely manageable. But it's static on the page. There's nothing we can do. So at this point, there's no order to how this content is being viewed. As a sighted user, if we were doing this in HTML, for example, we would be able to sort this table. We'd be able to repurpose the content to get information that we're interested in. Perhaps we want to see alphabetically, or we want to see by number of goals. In this case, we don't have a choice. This is the way that the author decided to lay out the document, and this is what we're stuck with. For most purposes, that may be okay, but now we live in a world where we expect to be able to manipulate the data on our page, right? As a user, you want to use the data that works in a way that is how you expect it. And we want to make sure that that can be done in an accessible way as well. Table 2. So again, we've got images with alt text, I assure you. But there's nothing that we can do with this table. And you'll see in a second some of the neat things that we can do within next generation PDF that makes a table no longer boring. And that really becomes exciting for us to use the data and understand the data in ways that we never have been able to do in PDF before. Oh, now I hope this link works. You know what? It's not going to work like that. Because you can't do it. Oh, PowerPoint. So dumb. Hang on. And show. Here we go. It's going to this screen, right? It's not doing it. Marcus, I can't use a Mac, so it's horribly inaccessible for me. So this is Vanna.
So you want to show the PDF first or the next generation?
The next gen.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can't get that link to work, and I don't know how to go back to PowerPoint now. There you go. Down one?
Yeah.
No, it was there.
Ah.
Yeah. Just press down. There you go. One.
Yeah.
Yep. There we go. So this has been developed by Access4. So Marcus and Samuel Hofer.
Connecting.
Do we have internet? Yeah, quit. Who cares? Quality build there. Hey, I am having my Bill Gates moment. A Microsoft product is crashing during a demo. Awesome. Apparently nothing's working. It worked earlier. Famous last words.
Steve Jobs, you could just kill all of your.
That's right. That's right. Any Firefox engineers in the room? No.
Maybe we should.
Why isn't it working? Do we have internet?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Yeah. Can someone please stop downloading the latest episode of whatever?
Maybe.
Okay, so I'm going to grab my laptop and bring it around to each of you as part of the next phase of the demo.
Maybe we have to shut down PowerPoint. No.
No, don't shut down the computer.
No. Where is it?
No, just close the browser.
I
So while
start
this
new
gets
one.
figured out. One thing I will say, this is all pre-specification, so we can't guarantee that it will ship doing what it does. But it's something that Samuel's been working on up until very, very recently to make sure that we've got that kind of an experience to try and play with it. And how can we make it more accessible? How can we use the current derivation algorithm that we're given? What can we do going forward to give the best possible experience to the users, as well as the authors? And I think this is one of the exciting things. I guess this is the first time that you're going to see one in action, right? We haven't seen one today. No internet? Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No connection.
No connection, yeah.
It's this device. It's a
Network problem.
network problem.
It's a general network problem.
But you're connected to the LAN. You don't need any Wi-Fi.
Broke the internet. that next generation PDF. Breaking the internet. Do you want it on stick?
No, you are connected by wire to the LAN, so that should definitely be no problem.
But we need it for mirroring the devices. So.
Oh,
Here we go.
It's working. Okay.
There we go. Okay, so what was done was a fully tagged PDF coming out of a new version of Access PDF for Word was able to generate a UA compliant static PDF and then be able to export the same content and display it in HTML. Okay? Did I lose anyone with that explanation? And Samuel, that was the correct explanation.
So do you think that it's clear that the chart you showed before?
Yes,
Um,
I'm getting that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is why Vanna never
Yeah.
speaks. So that comparative line graph that I showed you as the first example, all of that source data is now contained in this chart. And what's been done is we've been able to process that information and display it in 3 different ways. And the really cool part is that we can select different ranges to display different information. So depending on what year range you're selecting, the charts will live update. So from a cool factor, I don't think it gets better than that. Now, I mean, we're talking about PDF and HTML, so let's not get too carried away here. But and what is it? Unemployment statistics for the German?
Yeah.
Isn't it Germany's federal
Yeah.
unemployment stats? So it's really riveting stuff. But when you do it like this, now it's engaging. And the fact that it's got the ability to select different date ranges and zero in on specific targets and live update, that becomes really exciting. There's one problem. This visual representation is completely inaccessible, right? There's no way for me to live update that content as a screen reader user, at least today, and be able to and to then be able to re-render the content and get those exact data points. However, what exists, oh, this mouse, man, Jesus, is the full statistical data behind each one of those graphics. and it's all sortable. So now as a screen reader user, I've got a fully accessible HTML table of every single data point in that chart. And I can flip back and forth, fingers crossed. Oh, it worked. I can flip back and forth, so I now have the choice. And this doesn't just benefit screen reader users or any adaptive technology users, this benefits everyone. Typically, a traditional authoring implementation would say, I want the sexy graphic because it's easier to consume as a reader, but what if I need the real data? And usually, you get this thing at the bottom that says source, and then as a reader, you've got to go find that. As an author now, with next generation PDF, we have it embedded in the same file. And the user has the ability to choose. What do I want? Do I want something graphical, or do I want the full data? I will sort things, for example, like this. So you'll see that it live updates. And can I do that one? Or did I? Oh no, I already sorted it, didn't I? Huh? There we go. So again, it's live updating with that content. So you can use this content any way that you want. Now, Reflow. Oops, there we go. It skipped.
Maybe you talk and I.
Okay. Thank you, Vanna. So Reflow becomes one of those things, again, we never know what size screen that we're working on. And this is the pre-tagged content. And when Marcus resizes the display, the browser window, you'll see that it collapses from 3 columns into 2, live. And again, it still maintains all of its accessibility. You want to go one more?
Yeah.
Down to single?
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got single column display. So that content is able to be repurposed to fit the display that I'm looking at. As we all know, there's no way of forcing someone to only buy a 15-inch laptop. So we've got to make sure that the content is available regardless of the screen that we're working on. And in a second, Marcus will show you what else we can do with this reflow capability.
Yeah, but we can show it already here. I'm not sure if it will
Oh, if
succeed
it'll
with
work?
the devices,
Okay.
but you can say something about the table, because the table as a responsive table is still a challenge. And if you have only a small screen, you can choose which column. You have fixed header columns or header rows, and you can choose which column you want to see in combination with a header column.
So you've got the ability to only consume the data that fits on your screen at the time. And it allows us to put in some really neat code on the back end to identify that to a screen reader user so that they know what kind of an expectation to have. And this is commonly done in HTML today anyways. So we can now include that when we render the new file.
Yeah.
You've gone down to the next table.
Yeah.
You want to go to the big one or not? Like you want to go full width or want to start narrow?
This is the
Yeah.
big table?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, this table that we had before, statistical analysis of the players in the is this Euro?
No, World Championship
World
qualifying.
Good.
Okay.
But now we've got a full sortable option for us. So do you want to sort by player name? There we go. Switch it again, select goals, and everything is live updating. So again, we've got that ability to see the information that only pertains to what we're looking for at that time, or in a way that's much more consumable for us. And this is something that's really exciting, and we hope to be able to see as much of this come into the specification as possible. And there's a lot of people working on different options to see how we present this type of content. What do we do on different devices? And again, this is just one representation.
And if you make it smaller?
If it's shrunk down, we then go back into being able to choose what columns you want to see.
Depends on the screen size, but if you really go down.
There we go. So we can do 2 column. This is a great representation of what it would look like on a phone. You're keeping your left column anchored, and you're able to move through each column thereafter. Do you want to try and connect? Or is it not working?
Maybe.
No, don't touch that.
No, it was tested.
We have prepared it. So
We tested it at lunch. No, we couldn't get the internet to work before, so who knows?
maybe
Is it
we
on or
try
not?
it. We tried once if it works. Yeah, but
We got it to work with during the Wi-Fi.
Got what to work?
The internet.
No, that's not how it. You switch networks.
Mm,
Well, we'll give it a shot.
he says it's not possible. Maybe it depends.
It's not going to
on-
work.
Yeah.
It does, it does.
We'll solve it for tomorrow.
Okay. No.
So the rest of the demonstration was going to show you what the same content loads, or how that same content loads, both on a tablet and on a mobile. So you're able to see that content live update. And again, it doesn't matter what screen we're on. The integration with VoiceOver for Apple products is going to be a great feature because again, we've got full semantic structure with all of the content underlying the graphics. So we've got those options to choose from. It's not going to work.
No connection.
Unfortunately, the internet is broken, so we can't do that. But it's really cool. And we'll be around all week, so, well, till Wednesday, I guess. And if you'd like to see it live on the other devices, we're happy to do that.
No.
The other thing,
Um.
the QR, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. The other thing that we've done is we've loaded this sample file so that you can load a QR code on your phone or on your mobile or on your laptop and pull the file and you can play with it yourself in a browser. Samuel, did you put the PDF as well or just the HTML? Just the HTML, yeah. So you'll be able to see it on your own device. How are we gonna?
Yeah.
Come up to us after if you want to sample it because it was supposed to go on the screen, but it won't.
Here is the QR code.
It exists. Marcus is going to go person to person, row by row, and get you to take a picture of it. But that file will be there for you to take a look at and play with. Try the content, see what you can do on your device. Vanna, it's great. But I guess if the demo's not working, I guess that's where we'll end off. So we'll have the QR code available. Maybe we'll stick it on the table at break.
Yeah.
So it'll be on the Access 4 table at the break, and you can snap a shot of the QR and play with the file. We're early because we had like 2 other devices to run through, but I guess any questions? Anything you wanted to see again? Yeah.
So if HTML can do all these things already, then what's the value proposition of importing it now into PDF?
I think that's a great question, and I think one of the reasons that we still look at the PDF file as such an important container is the distributability and the can I say document of record? And having a document of record. So for organizations that are authoring this content, again, nobody authors HTML, right? Subject matter experts aren't going to sit in an HTML editor to post content. You may have a web publishing team that will take your content or a CMS that will do that, but most content is authored in another format first. So whether that's Word, PowerPoint, InDesign, Excel, well, we're not going there yet, but your authoring environment is going to be very different than your publishing environment. And because most workflows are already used to generating PDF content, if we can do it in an accessible way, in a distributable way, and quite frankly, in a way that's much more flexible. If I want to read this in an 8.5 by 11 format, I can. I can print this off and still have that hard copy document. With HTML, we really don't have that same concept. So we've got access to the same information, but it's being presented in a very different way. With next generation PDF, it gives us the option to do it any way we want from a single source. And to me, that is one of the biggest pluses of next generation PDF. I'm not quite convinced that we're going to re-PDF the web. I don't think that has a very wide potential. But if we're going from authored environments into a digital publishing environment, this is the best way to do it because we don't need to teach the author anything new. And it's one of the things that we saw as a huge challenge for implementing the laws in Ontario. Initially, the province trained 60,000 people on how to tag PDFs. Today, two people in the province tag them. That I would consider capable of doing it to a UA compliance level. So if we're getting authors to be able to use new tools, better tools, and distributing content in a much easier way, from the authoring standpoint and the publishing standpoint, the government, in our case, organizations in Ontario will no longer have to go through a second or third step to ensure that their content is accessible for publishing.
And maybe we can add that this is only one use case. And you have to imagine that the source file is a Word document. And by clicking a button, we made a next generation PDF with all this interactivity and accessibility. And the author only had to make a Word file. So
Structured Word file.
a structured Word file, yeah. And it's a big advantage to have both the advantages of the web and the advantages of PDF. If you do not need the advantages of PDF, you could even make only an HTML file out of it. Why not? But if you want both, then next generation PDF is your choice. Yeah.
Yeah, Dylan.
One question. I think I can state next generation PDF will give us or will provide accessibility through the back door. And but one simple question: how much larger is a next generation PDF compared with a simple tag PDF nowadays?
What do you see?
You
10%?
can measure it.
If that, yeah, it's marginal at best. Like the real impact. Now, this presentation is using a bit of a different mechanism to get there, but a lot of this is built into the web toolkit already. So we don't have to do anything other than provide that semantic instruction behind it. So that gives us a lot more flexibility. Yeah.
Your point about the author not having to learn anything new, as you said. So this demo was created in Word, but the data set had to be included in that Word file somehow, right? I mean, so
it was copied in from Excel.
From Excel.
Yep.
Okay. But I mean that to me is the problem point in the whole thing, in the sense that the authoring tools need to be able to do that. So, you know, I mean, Microsoft needs to cooperate, Adobe needs to cooperate with their authoring tools so that we can somehow get that data in and not just a picture of the data.
Well, and I would suggest sorry.
Yeah. You first.
I'm gonna plug the PDF Association for a second. I think one of the cool things is to be able to have a community that wants to bring in new options for content in PDF. You're going to see implementations that will do different things, similarly to what we see in HTML. You know, if you're wanting a certain chart kit, you will pull that in and now use that as part of your implementation. We're going to be able to have similar options in PDF, and how quickly that comes, who knows. But that is definitely the goal of the TWG, and definitely even more so the goal of the TMG, to make this as sexy and interactive as we can. Because this is what people want out of a document, and this is how we want to be able to present new, rich capabilities of content. And yes, all of the developers should get along and implement fully UA compliant solutions. Yeah. Oh, did you have something else?
Yeah,
Sorry.
maybe a short hint. This was not a magic Word file. It was a very common Word file, because you have a table in Excel and you make a chart and you copy and paste this chart into Word. And you have the possibility to say, is it connected with your table or not? Is the table embedded or not? By default, it is embedded. If a user doesn't think about it, by default, it is embedded, and you have the table behind the chart in Word. You even could change the data in the table. This is possible. That's nothing magic, but the table wasn't used so far. And you are right, the tools have to support these features so that they really use the available data to make a great experience. Mm-hmm. But the Excel table isn't accessible by accident. You have to do this. Your part as an author or as a developer is to make it possible that the connected data, like the table in this example, can be made accessible. Yeah.
Well, it has to be. In terms of the mechanism that's being used here. If it's not accessible,
it is here.
Won't work.
It is accessible.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So again, when you're starting with a good document and you're starting with a structured file, you're able to do really cool stuff like this. If again, bad data in, bad data out, it's going to be one of those things that I think we'll see very quickly in the implementations, that want to get further down the road with this interactivity and showing content in a different way. Yeah?
So what we have to do is, it's not, I cannot create the table with a word and then create the chart.
Sure you could. Yep. It doesn't matter how the table's coming in.
So as an author, I would just create all the tables in Word and then the charts.
If you've structured the table correctly, yes.
Of course.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
then I would be able to have the chart in the PDF and in the HTML have these flexible.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this implementation.
Yeah.
In this implementation,
Yes.
and I could also choose to have the chart and the table displayed, or just the chart.
Well, I would suggest that I'm not sure that thinking has gone there yet. I mean, this obviously is not production ready and the specification's not set. But the idea would be, or the hope would be, at least from where we're standing, to give you as many options as possible. And I don't think we're alone in that, anyone else working on NextGen. The idea is to be able to give authors as much flexibility with the presentation of their content, regardless of the screen that you're working on. Yes. No, it's okay.
Just to add to that, and you heard some of this in other sessions today as well. Not only is it about the author, which is absolutely very clear, it's also about the user as well. So, for example, you may choose to put out a bar chart of the data, but a viewer may want to give users the ability to choose other chart types from that same data. So the fact that the data is there not only enables you as an author to choose, but it also gives users and viewers the ability to provide additional capabilities as well. Another example, one of the other sample types we've been playing around with is map, which also works very nicely with products like Word or InDesign, where you can put equations in. So if you have the semantics of that equation, for example, in something like MathML, then you could do graphing, for example, of that equation in your viewer. So the user sees the equation and might have a button that says graph. And now you could have graphing of that equation as well. So again, the whole idea here is the more semantics, the more data we can get into the file, the more interesting things users will be able to do and understand and process with that content.
And it does lend itself to that add-on space where I want this kind of a chart or that kind of a layout, or all of that will hopefully be possible as next generation continues to grow and as we see different opportunities within the file. Again, from an accessibility standpoint, which is where the three of us are definitely coming from, this allows us to leverage all of the knowledge that we've got from UA and implement really whizzy layouts and experiences for users regardless of how they want to consume the content. And it's always going to be accessible. Yeah?
The data which is shown, also text headings, the content or the text, is it resolved through the page content stream, or is this information available through the text structure? So yeah, where's the content from?
So it would be from the tag structure.
Text structure.
Yeah.
100% text.
Yeah.
Text operation analyzed to recreate this appearance.
Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay, so why? I actually didn't get it. Why? What's the difference if we simply if we have Word and we start with one click and we get a PDF with two versions? Why did it mix? But and not the simple HTML version with all data available, and the other one is a static PDF.
Well, so arguably that's possible today. The point is, we're never going to know how a user is going to be loading that file. And our goal is obviously to use next generation PDF as the base container. What we do within that container allows us to have flexibility across the board. So yes, we generate a fully accessible and tagged PDF, like a traditional PDF.
So you don't need to render it.
Correct.
You only use the text renderer.
Correct. Yep. Depending on how you're loading it, and I think that's one of the biggest points. We never know when a user is going to want to read our file. So what we want to be able to do is put an instruction in that says, oh, Marcus, you're loading it on an iPad. Okay, I'm going to give you the HTML rendering from the same URL. So a next generation PDF viewer is going to be able to tell, well, I'm assuming, yeah, it will. Okay, what kind of a device am I on? How should I display this in the best possible way? You're always going to be able to I would assume most implementations would allow you to override it and say, no, you know what, I want to see a traditional PDF layout, or I want to have my content reflowed to best fit my viewing preference. That's going to be available from the next generation PDF container. And that's why it's all there. Yeah, one question? No more questions? We can talk later. Matt's giving me the sign. So thanks so much. Thanks, Vanna.